Hi, I'm Layla Kyer of the Narrative House, and I'm here with Catherine Matz, senior partner of Hands On, a learning and organizational development consultancy, and the mastermind behind the Reset Leadership Program. Catherine, thanks for being here. And I first have to know, what was the inspiration for the Reset Leadership Program?
Yeah, nice to see you, Layla. I mean, you know what? I think we sort of, myself and my colleagues, we just kind of presumed that all of these key elements for leaders coping with this current climate were already available in one package. And, then we started hearing from clients saying, hey, do you know if this program exists? And I was like, we started doing some digging and we were like, surely this exists. But what we found was it didn't exist. And interestingly enough, not only did it not exist in terms of having the key components together in this one program that is cogent, it's easily digestible, it's easily actionable for leaders, not only did it not exist in one format, but then we started digging a little bit deeper. And even if you just look at one thing, right, like leading virtual teams, you do a Google search, you'll end up with tens of thousands of options. So basically what that does is that puts either the leader himself or herself in a situation where they have to go and dig and find the resource, or their learning partner is doing that. So that's really what triggered it. Very organic, was, just commentary from our own clients.
And how did you decide on the different co-designers and authors and the panelists who will be facilitating this?
Right. Well, first we sort of stepped back and just said, well, what are the key components that a leader needs right now? Some of what we're dealing with is known, but much of what we're dealing with, all of us, is unknown. And it's just this I don't need to say this because it's obvious, but it's this overarching air of uncertainty. So the first thing that we did was sort of step back and say, if you're a leader today, doesn't matter what your function is, doesn't matter your industry, size, etc., doesn't matter where you sit globally, what are some of the key things that would be really helpful for you right now? And based on those topics, these four key elements, that's when I started thinking about who are the best resources available worldwide to talk about each of these different needs and opportunities for leaders. And that's really how the team got pulled together. So, as folks who are really great and deep in the space of storytelling, really deep in the space of credible, authentic communications, leadership, change management, engagement, etc. So that's really where we went first, is we wanted to provide the best of the best, for sure. But I think it's beyond just best of best. I think it's also, I'm a big fan of thought leaders who are obviously super bright and know all the best practices and have seen all the lessons learned, but that they're also very pragmatic. Because I think if pragmatism, was ever more needed, it's right now. So that was sort of layer number two for me.
Yeah, great point. Who's your ideal participant? Who are you hoping signs up for this?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. I mean, it was also one of the things that was very, sort of prevalent in the lens of thinking about what's the program and who's on the team and so forth. But really what we were looking at was, you could be a frontline leader. You could be a new leader and have a team of 3 people. And it's kind of like public speaking, right? What you have to go through to not only prepare to lead that team and keep them engaged and retain talent and all of the above and keep the focus moving forward, whether you do that for 3 people with a little bit of skill, you're new to it, or you do that with 100 people and you're very experienced, none of what we're dealing with, there's no rule book for it, right? Mm-hmm. We're all sort of learning this as it transpires. And so the short answer to your question was making sure that, again, pragmatic content, best practice, pragmatic content, actionable content, but making sure that the content, the tools from this program, the learning will work for an entry level brand new leader all the way through to sort of, I would say second tier, just under the C-suite level. C-suite level, this is probably not appropriate for, just because we get into some nuts and bolts, right? In terms of, if your business, by way of example, if your business strategy is getting readjusted, there's going to be a cascade effect to you as a leader, right? And so that's grapple number one. I need to figure that out. Grapple number two is, how do I realign my team to that? So very long-winded answer, Layla, sorry, but that's really, we wanted it to be as inclusive as possible. So I would say leaders at all level, sort of underneath the C-suite.
Great. And across, it sounds like all industries, it would be relevant.
All industries, all sizes of orgs. As you know, we work with organizations of 50 people up to 200,000 people. Mm-hmm. I will share 100% across the board, the stories are the same. And what we're hearing, in terms of needs are the same. And in terms of how team members expect leaders to show up right now, 100% the same.
Great. Can you give me, just sort of to close out in summary, what will participants really get out of this? What is your hope for this program that someone walks away with?
Right. So maybe what I should do is just sort of talk through the 4 modules, then we can talk about overarching. So 4 modules, micro, right? 75 minutes to 90 minutes. We know that people, they want learning and development right now, but they want it in smaller chunks. Mm-hmm. So each module is 75 to 90 minutes. There's approximately 5 business days, or 7 calendar days, if you will, in between each of the modules. We don't want too much of a break because the learning is a building block effect. Module number 1 is called Leader's Journey. And I like to equate that with the old airplane thing, right? That, if there's an emergency, you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help other people. And so Leader's Journey is not just exclusively about the leader and what he or she needs right now. There's a little bit more to it than that. There might also be some things like, adjusting business strategy. But the first module is very much about helping ground the leader, right? And what they need to be thinking about for themselves and for their function and their team right now. So things like anticipating future scenarios, things like, demonstrating authentic leadership, self-awareness, maintaining trust across the team. So that's module number 1. Module number 2, we call your talent. So next up is, how do you think about your team right now and what their needs are? Because they're going to vary by individual. And as we know, different individuals based on their leadership skills are going to have varying levels of capabilities when it comes to understanding individual needs. So that's your talent, which is really helping leaders think about how do they potentially reorganize their teams and the work, but also how do they keep them engaged whilst being empathetic and so forth. And that could be things like, we need new team norms, right? The way that we're working has completely changed. Module number 3, we call Your Space. And that's really about, as you can imagine, rethinking how we work in this sort of current order. I don't even want to call it New World Order, because I think we're all hopeful that at some point we're going to return to some normalcy, and I'm sure we will. But there's a very fluid situation in terms of how work gets done. And then the 4th module is your tools, right? And again, we anticipate that we're going to have leaders with varying levels of expertise around technology. But what are some tools without a high investment? What are some tools that are available to help the leader and their teams better work and thrive together under this current climate? Your tools also include things like, are there practices, so it's not just like, systems, technologies. In that regard, things like processes and practices, we'd also regard as your tools. And so, we may find through those discussions as a leader that things that we were doing pre all of this were already subpar. Now is a great opportunity to look at that and realign. Even if things were fantastic before and totally optimized, they may not be optimized for this current climate. So that's really what we're going to look at and work through with each of the participants is, what's your personal journey, not only as yourself, but also how you think about your function and your strategy and your future direction. Your team, your talent, how do you optimize that situation, your space, and then your tools. So you can kind of understand why I said earlier, clients were saying to us, why isn't this all put in, one immediate package? And I was like, I'm sure it is. And then I realized, oh my goodness, no, it's not. So anyway.
Absolutely. Someone had to do it. We're all learning as we go.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Any final words that you would say to share or get people excited to attend the Reset Leading Through Change program?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to, I'm sure, Layla, if you ask the different thought leaders in the team, everybody's going to have a slightly different take, which is great. That's the diversity of the team. My own thing is, I'm, again, going back to pragmatism. I'm a huge pragmatist. I love learning, but if I walk away and it's so esoteric that I can't do anything with it, then it was really for naught. So what I'm really jazzed about, there's a leader's toolkit with a lot of great things, that resources and tools embedded within the toolkit that participants can use immediately after they step out of the sessions. And again, with that, pragmatic sort of lens to all of this, I'm really excited that I think it's going to make a massive change for the individuals, for their teams, and for their organizations. So that's what I'm really personally excited about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Very much looking forward to kicking off the program in the next few weeks.
Thank you.